Hey folks, coming to you today to give the important information for confirmation as we are looking forward to the beginning of the new year and the start of another program, and offering this as an option for those of you who are unable to be with us for the in-person orientation. I want to say welcome. I know that those of you out there who are watching this have new kids, so this one is aimed at both you as the parents and you as the students, so please be watching this together. And of course, if there are any questions that you have, feel free to get in contact with me in the meantime, and we will get them answered. Now, for a couple of you out there, I know that you've had older children that have gone through the program with me before. So most of what we're going to talk about is probably going to sound pretty familiar, because honestly things don't really tend to change that much from year to year to year to year. But I also know that a couple of you out there, this will be your oldest child that is going through the program, so this will be new to you. So I just want to kind of get all of this information to you. First off is in terms of communication. I want you to know that all the information that I'm going to give you today is available on the church website. If you go to the website and kind of at the top right corner, hover over, there's a spot where it says more, and that will bring a drop-down menu. Confirmation information is on there. Now this video will be on there. I'm actually going to leave that on there over the course of the year. The schedule is on there. There's also a link to the sermon note file and a link to the covenant that's kind of got the all of this information on there. So all of that information is present for you there if you need it, but I will also get it to you outside of looking for it on the website as well. In terms of the best ways to communicate with me, you will learn, if you don't already know, that I have the tendency to do confirmation communication by email, and I have the tendency of sending you way more information than you really need. I like to overshare as opposed to undershare. And I also ask that you email me back if you need to communicate with me. Now, some of you also have my cell phone number. You can send me a message that way or give me a call that way. That usually works as well. But in terms of communicating for confirmation type stuff, things that are coming up, changes, whatever, I tend to do that by email. So please pay attention to your email on that front. The different things that we're going to talk about today is just what's pertinent for the confirmation program itself. The first thing I want to talk about is attendance. Now, I tend to shoot for 75% of possibilities in terms of attendance, both with class as well as worship opportunities. Now, we'll talk through that schedule here in just a minute. 75% in terms of if you make all that, you pass, everything's great. If you're going to miss something, there are opportunities to make stuff up. If you're going to miss class, please let me know if you know ahead of time. Now, sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes Sunday morning just doesn't work for folks to be there, and I understand that. One of the things that I probably will continue to do will be to set up my laptop and record the class session. This is something that I started last year as we were dealing with remote learning and COVID and kind of all of that stuff. And that worked pretty well for folks who could not be there. Then they can at least sit through the video of the class, and even if they are unable to participate live, at least they can still get that experience and have that. So that's a possibility for makeup work if you need it. The other item for makeup type situations is in terms of sermon notes. Now this all goes into how I track attendance stuff. Classwork is usually just I have a sign-in sheet for folks who are there, or if you're going to do it remotely, I might ask a couple of questions via email and have you respond to those along with your child as a way to track that. Now, sermon notes, that's the other thing that's pretty simple. Kids, you're going to learn to love sermon notes if you have not done them already, for you 7th graders out there. They're the best way that I can track that you are present in worship. Now, the great thing right now is we have multiple options for getting a hold of a sermon to be able to hear it. You can be here in person for worship. That's always a good thing. There's also the online option where you as a family can sit and watch that together and get the sermon that way. Or I also post the audio of the sermons. Those are available on the website every week as well. So there are multiple ways that you can hear the sermon, fill out sermon notes, either bring them with you to class the next time you come, or sometimes kids will email me, or parents as well can email me that file. Again, The file for sermon notes is on the website under confirmation information. You can find it there. But just answering those questions, and that's a way that I track worship. So either being here in person or being able to make that up, either way will work. You'll find that it's pretty easy to work with me as long as we're communicating and we're staying in touch. Now, I don't want to have to chase people down in terms of attendance stuff. That's really kind of on you and your child to pay attention to. But if you communicate with me, we'll make it work. And if something is just not tracking, is not working, please be in touch with me and we'll find a way to make it work. But that's the best way to go about that. Now, one last thing that I want to bring up is the possibility of extra credit in terms of attendance type stuff. There are going to be times throughout the course of the program year when we won't have a required worship service, but there's going to be a sermon anyway, and so doing that is a way to just make up some extra credit in terms of attendance points. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but again, communication, communication, communication. Okay. That is things in terms of our attendance type situations. Now, the calendar, that's the schedule. That's kind of the important thing that we are going to be looking at. This particular year, our focal point is kind of a 2-point. We're looking at first Martin Luther and Reformation history. That'll be the first section that we look at, and then we will transfer into working our way through the small catechism. In my confirmation program, we do a 2-year, and I just go back and forth. This year, it's Reformation history and small catechism. Next year, it will be biblical narrative, and I just go back and forth between the two so that every class will get both of those focal points, either their first year or their second year. Our 8th graders had biblical narrative last year. Our 7th graders will get biblical narrative next year. So that's just kind of what we can anticipate and expect with that. We kick things off on September 12th as I'm recording this for you. That's about a week and a half from now, but that will be the beginning of our time of class working together. Classes will meet during the education time at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. We are planning on meeting downstairs in the fellowship hall, kind of on the back end. So as you come down the stairs into the fellowship hall, you hang a right and go all the way to the end. There's one of the bathrooms back there. We're going to be in that section. That's where I'm anticipating that we are going to be. So no opening or anything for those of you who are coming out of the Sunday school program. We don't have that time like the Sunday school kids do. Students will just come straight in, and we'll kick things off right there at the 9 o'clock hour. So that is what to look for. Also, kids, bring your Bibles with you if you have them. Of course, we have extra Bibles here at the church as well, but if you bring them with you, that's just that much more helpful. So plan on bringing those with you. So again, we start on the 12th, 9 a.m. downstairs in the fellowship hall. We're going to spend about the first 5 weeks looking at that Luther history or Reformation history. That'll be our first focal point, like I mentioned a moment ago. From there, we're going to transfer into the 10 Commandments. This is going to start about mid-October. And we'll meet for a couple of weeks. Then we hit our first break. And I want to highlight some of those just so you're aware of them. Again, I'll communicate all this stuff week by week as we're going along, but want to highlight them now as well. October 31st, the final Sunday and final day, really, of October, there will not be class. I'm actually going to be gone that particular Sunday, so there will not be class on that Sunday. Then, beginning back in November, we will continue with our exploration of the commandments, going through the first 3 weeks of November, and then we will be on break the 28th, which is Thanksgiving week. So there will be no class that particular Sunday as well. Into December, we will pick up with the first of our focal points of the sacraments. And through the first couple of Sundays of December, we will be looking at baptism. Then we will be on break through the Christmas holiday and through New Year's. And right now we're slated to be off on December 19th, 26th, and January 2nd. If we have an early weather type situation that requires us to miss a Sunday ahead of time, we'll make that up on December 19th. I don't anticipate that happening. Usually we don't have any weather that really causes a serious issue until after the first of the year. But that date is there in case we have to make something up. I don't expect that we probably will, but it's a possibility if we need to. Then, as we get into January, after New Year's and school resumes and we get going back again, we will pick up and we will transfer into focus on the Apostles' Creed. That will be our next point, and we'll spend the month of January going through there. Then in February, we will look at the Lord's Prayer. And then the first couple of weeks of March, we will finalize our classroom type activity, our class work, as we focus in on Holy Communion. And again, if we bump into some situations where weather does trip us up through there, we may extend a little farther into March if necessary, but the expectation right now is that after the first 2 Sundays of March, we'll be done with all of our classroom type activity, and we will go on from there. So that is something to be aware of there. Next thing that I want to talk about, this one is a little bit about to be determined. Normally, through the course of the year, there are 3 worship services that I have the kids participate in. The first of which is a combination leading of worship with the Sunday schoolers. Now, perhaps you've noticed this before. Your kids have probably participated in it before. But usually what we'll do, and this is typically mid-December leading into Christmas, we have a time when the confirmation students lead worship, and I work with them ahead of time to kind of prepare them for the different aspects that they will lead. And then the Sunday school does their program in terms of or in place of, I should say, the sermon. But the confirmation kids lead the whole rest of the worship service. Now, at this particular moment, as I'm recording this, that's a little bit up in the air. The Sunday school program is still kind of working out how it's going to look, and so I don't know if there's going to be that focal point or not. To be determined, we'll stay in contact on that. But under normal situations, that's one of the things we do. That'll be in December. The next thing that I want to bring up dovetails from that, and that's when we get to the season of Lent. Now, normally, under normal conditions, we do anticipate and expect that the kids will be present, along with you as parents, at our midweek worship services on Wednesday evenings through the season of Lent. Now, this is another to be determined. If you remember last year, we actually didn't have any in-person stuff for our midweek activities for Lent. None of the meals were happening, and the worship services were all online. At this point, I don't exactly know what Lent is going to look like. This, again, we will communicate as we get closer. We don't know if there's going to be food. At this point, we're still not serving food, but that's kind of on the agenda for leadership to talk about. So meals might be resuming, and they might not be. Again, we don't know yet. And the same with the midweek worship services. So to be determined whether or not the kids will need to be there or not. But we will kind of pay attention to that. Now, again, when we get to Lent, typically in years past, for class time, we put class on pause and we move into preparation for Holy Week, because there's a couple of opportunities for the kids to help lead worship during Holy Week and Easter as well. This year, of course, like I mentioned, those first 2 Sundays of March, which are actually into the season of Lent, we're going to be finishing up our classwork. And then once the classwork is done, we'll shift over into that planning mode during class time. Normally this takes about 3 weeks, and our schedule just happens to work out nicely for those 3 weeks to happen before we get to Holy Week, even with those 2 periods of class. We'll continue to monitor as we get closer to this. Again, this is March we're talking about, so that's several months down the road. But this is sort of what we're anticipating. Normally, again, those midweek times kick off in the evenings with dinner and then worship service. That will all be determined. And then the planning stage will all kind of come together as we look towards Holy Week as well. Now, the 2 Holy Week times that I want you to be aware of, first one is Good Friday, and that is on April 15th, so middle of April. Normally, the way Good Friday works is the kids participate. I lead most of the service itself, but gradually as the service goes on, we're taking the various items off the altar behind me, and the students will participate as they take them and carry them out. It's something we call the stripping of the altar. So they participate in that. Then on Easter morning, for the sunrise service, we sort of reverse that, and the kids bring all the items back in, and then they lead the sunrise service. And this is what we plan during that class time during the season of Lent. So we'll kind of, again, determine how that's going to look. Now, this year, again, is a little different than quote-unquote normal because of the way last year looked. Of course, our 8th graders have not done any of this, and the 7th graders are new, so they haven't done any of it either. So we'll kind of see how that all shakes out. I may be a little bit more hands-on with the sunrise service worship than I have been in past years. All of this to be determined. So we will see as we get closer how things are looking for us in terms of everything from that perspective. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is in terms of food. Again, I've already mentioned this. We don't know if food will be an option or not. Normally, in past years, the confirmation students and families have served one of the Wednesday evening meals, and then they also serve the Easter breakfast. We don't know if that will happen. We'll be in touch on that as we know more. So that's sort of what we can anticipate with that. Now, Easter. At this point, the expectation is that your kid will be there and will be participating. So students, I'm looking at you, you will be participating. If we know that's not going to happen, the sooner you communicate that with me, the better, and we will find ways to get around that. But note that that's going on, and Easter this coming year, Easter 2022, I should say, is April 17th. So that is the date of that. The very last thing I want to talk about in terms of schedule, sorry, I know this has been a lot, but the last thing in terms of schedule is for you 8th grade families, and that is May 1st is the date of confirmation. That will be Confirmation Sunday, so plan on worship at that time. Now, if you already know or you discover for whatever reason that you cannot be there, that your child cannot be there on the 1st of May, let me know. This will not be the first time that we've had to have a student that was confirmed outside of Confirmation Sunday, but I would like to avoid that if possible. It's always good if we can have the whole group there. So May 1st, big bold letters, May 1st is confirmation. Get that on your calendars now so that you don't plan something else for that particular Sunday. All right, that is everything for the schedule. Again, I know that's a lot of information. Questions, just throw them my way. Shoot me an email and I will clarify if I can. Next thing I want to talk about is acolyting. Acolyting is something that we're going to resume. If you've been watching, we have not had acolytes over the course of the last year and a half since COVID started, but I anticipate that we're going to start having acolytes again. Now, every student wigs out about acolyting until they actually do it once and they discover it's really not that difficult. I will work with you in terms of you knowing what you need to do and understanding what you need to do, but it's really, really easy. Normally, what acolyting looks like is during the opening hymn, you bring the candle lighter and you come up and you light the 2 candles that are on opposite sides behind me on the altar. Then, normally, during offering, they take the communion, the offering plates, which are, I can't quite see, I think right there behind me. They hold them, the ushers come and take them. The child stands there and waits while the ushers are collecting the offering, and then the offering comes back up and they go put it up on the altar. Now again, if you've been paying attention, we're not actually collecting offering right now because we have the drop box at the back end of the sanctuary. So that's a possibility that we might resume that, but we might not either, so that might be a moot point. The other thing is if it's a communion Sunday, I'm up here and the other server is up here, and then the student or the acolyte holds what I lovingly call the holy garbage can, which is the tray where the empty communion cups are placed. Now again, if you've been paying attention, in the last year and a half when we've had communion, we literally have a holy garbage can and they drop them in there. So that aspect may or may not resume. We'll kind of see how that goes. It probably will. I anticipate that will probably happen for communion, if it's a communion Sunday. And then the very last thing that the acolyte will do is during the closing song, they go back up and they put the 2 candles out and they walk out. It's really, really not difficult. And kids, I know you're probably going to worry about it. It's not hard, and I will be there to walk you through it the first time. And once you've done it once, you discover it's really not difficult. So no worries there. In terms of how we schedule that, typically, we just start with the 8th graders and then move into the 7th graders, and we do it alphabetically, and it just repeats. We go through the list, and then the list repeats. If you know you can't be there when you are scheduled to acolyte, you can either switch with someone or let me know so that I can try and find someone ahead of time. If you handle the switching, that's always easier for me, and then I don't have to worry about it, but that's going to be out there. Now, I don't know exactly when we're going to start that schedule. If you've noticed right now in terms of lighting candles and such, I'm just sort of handling that, but I do want to get the Acolyte schedule going, so we're probably going to get into that at some point in September. I anticipate that will start fairly quickly after we resume on the 12th, so be looking for that information. I will share that when we are ready to start off that schedule. Okay, that's acolyting. Last thing I want to bring up is mentoring. This is something that I think is good. It's an opportunity for you as students to get to know another adult from within the congregation. Now, I ask the students to identify a mentor from within the congregation, preferably not a family member and definitely not a parent. There have been exceptions to that, but those are definitely not the rule. The expectation is that you're forming a relationship with another adult outside of your family. If you need help in finding a mentor, if you have an issue locating someone or identifying a person, let me know. I've got a pretty good list in the back of my head of folks who are usually open to doing this. Now, what does mentoring look like? It's really, really simple. It's 3 meetings between now and April. I also produce a guide, a discussion guide that I will give to the mentor, and that helps in the whole situation for guiding these conversations. They don't need to be long conversations. I've oftentimes seen students and mentors just meet in the church office after worship, and they kind of talk through the stuff, and then both people sign off on the discussion sheet, bring that back to me, I put that in your file, and we track it that way. So that is kind of the whole point of the mentoring and how to go about that. Again, communicate with me if you have any issues, but please, please, please stay on top of this. This has been problematic in past years in terms of getting everything accounted for. And I will continue to remind the students, I will continue to remind you parents, but please stay on that and get that so that we don't have that particular issue. Okay, I lied. I have one more thing that I want to talk about. A question came up in our in-person orientation about youth group activities. If you have not heard, our faith formation coordinator position is now open. We don't have anyone in that role, and that role really kind of helps spearhead that. So at the moment, youth group activities are kind of up in the air. One thing that I suggested last night as a possibility is that we create a calendar, maybe only once a month, but different families, different adults, maybe partnering up a couple of families or a couple of parents together, working to put together some sort of a youth group activity. And for instance, it could be a bonfire in October, or a skating party. Do kids still go skating? I don't even know. I guess they've got skating at UMBA, but maybe going mini golfing in November or whatever. Those are just possibilities. And if someone wants to help coordinate that or spearhead that calendar, not planning every event, but at least spearheading the calendar, please let me know. If you're of the mentality of, hey, I can help coordinate that, that would be great. But that is a possibility. And the other thing that also came up, we had a question about Bible camp. We are connected with our Synod Bible Camp, which is Ingham Okoboji. It's actually 2 different sites that are up north by Okoboji, and that is our Synod camp. They're the staff members who come and do VBS every year, and that is a possibility. There's another camp over by Story City. It's called Riverside. We also have another camp on the Nebraska side of the river called Carol Joy Howling, which is only about 45-ish odd minutes, maybe an hour from here. So we've got different camps that are a possibility that we could explore if folks are interested in that, and I can help get information towards that. Another question did come up a couple years back. You may remember this. I took a group of kids out to Colorado, which is where normally I go for family camp every year, and we did camp out there. That could happen again. That may be a possibility if there is enough interest. That's a long way to go for camp, especially when we have camps that are closer, but it was a really good experience. So that if there is sufficient interest in that, we can work on putting that type of trip together as well. Okay, folks, that is everything that I have. Sorry that this got long-winded, and I know I threw a lot of information at you. Again, if necessary, just let me know, and I will communicate or clarify anything for you. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing your kids on September 12th, about a week and a half from now as I'm recording this, as we kick off this year. that I hope to be a good one. And the last little caveat that I will say is, of course, if things need to change because of the ongoing nature of COVID, hopefully not. We got things trending back in the right direction again now, but if things need to change because of that, we will communicate as best we can, and we'll be flexible as best we can. Otherwise, see you guys soon, and thanks for tuning in.